You all join palms. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here, for showing up. Glad you're all here. Anyone here for the first time? What brings you here?
Visiting from Florida. I go to a Gadama meditation center in Florida, Sarasota.
Well, welcome to the Dharma Bum Temple. How's Florida these days?
Hot.
Yeah, well, glad you're here.
I just moved here from Minnesota.
Nice. It's a long walk. Did you walk or?
I thought about it.
That would be pretty cool, right? How long would that take?
Probably over a week.
Over a week. It'd be a nice walk though, yeah. You gonna Google it? Google Map, how long the walk in Minnesota? How do you like San Diego so far?
I like it a lot. I was part of a Dharma center in Minnesota, so I've been looking for it.
Nice.
So I'm excited to be here.
I know. It wasn't the Minnesota Zen Center, was it?
It was common ground.
Okay, very cool. Nice. Well, welcome. I saw a couple other hands in the back. What brings you here?
Just checking it out.
It's good to stay in the back when you check it out, because then you can just sneak out. Nobody will even know.
That's right.
Yeah, I suggest that side right by the door. And that way, as soon as we start meditation, close our eyes, we'll never even know you were here. So it was actually cute last night. I do the Tuesdays and Saturdays, so I'm just filming it on Wednesdays. I'll talk about that in a minute. But it was cute last night. There was a young guy who was here for the first time. And, Tuesdays are pretty full. And he came up to me after, he was sitting right here afterwards. And he said, I just wanted to introduce myself. And he said, I had a question about the cushions up here. And I said, what's that? And he said, can anybody sit on them, or are they like reserved for the advanced people? And I told him, yes, they were reserved for the advanced people. So he should stay in the chairs for a while. But it is a funny thing, especially if you're newer, maybe to Buddhist places or meditation places. There's some possibly like awkwardness or uneasiness around where do I sit? How do I sit? What's the right way to sit? And here, the most important thing is just be comfortable when you sit. And whatever that means, that's what that means. So that's most important. It's just be comfortable when sitting. We have enough madness in our lives, enough stress and chaos and craziness in our lives that the last thing we want to try to do is add this stress and pressure over how we're being at this little meditation thing, So just be present. All right, so with that, we'll start. To those who are joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Feel free as you are to say hello. There's a chat box on your screen somewhere. As I started to mention, Alex, who's always done our loving kindness practice for years and years, as he always does, takes a break for a while. So he took a break the end of last month, and I had the big task of filling in the loving kindness practice for a month. And I'm not really that much of a loving, kind person, so this has been really hard for me, having to pretend to be nice and all that kind of stuff for us Zen people is really difficult. But I've tried. Thankfully, this is my last night doing it, and then we'll start our new 4 Foundations of Mindfulness and Brahma Vihara class. Bettina, she will begin next Wednesday, and then that will continue, and she'll lead every Wednesday moving forward. So thank you all for putting up with me and trying to be Alex and as loving and kind as I can. So I was asked, though, I think it was more of a challenge last week, because I kept calling these meditations on Wednesdays for 4 weeks like a special meditation, and then week 2 was a very special meditation, and then week 3 was a very most special meditation. So this is the last one, and someone asked me if I could actually lead a loving kindness meditation. So since I was challenged to do that, I will do my best to make up as much loving kindness stuff as I can while we sit. So. And think, you came all the way from Florida and Minnesota to be stuck with this guy tonight, you know? So when do you go back?
Well, I'm going to Hawaii next, and then I'll go back.
Nice.
I go back on the 12th.
Right on. Hawaii is a good place to go to next from what I've been told. So, all right. So for those who are maybe sitting for the first time or sitting here for the first time, a couple things to tell you before you begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. Meaning, don't ask yourself, is this working? Is it not working? Are you doing it right? Are you doing it wrong? We're just going to sit and breathe. You're going to hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And the practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you want to be comfortable. If you are one of those advanced folks who's sitting on the floor, feel free to sit on the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten, shoulders are relaxed, hands can be on the knees or in the lap. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're sitting, just try to sit up straight, also relaxing the shoulders. Also hands on the knees or the lap. If you need to move, simply move. It doesn't make you a bad meditator. It just means your leg hurts or you have an itch. So simply move, return to stillness. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into whatever we settle into. And starting with your eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. As your mind begins to settle, gently guide the attention, focus to your heart. Begin to visualize the heart in any way. With each breath in, begin to see it expand. Now gently bringing to mind loved ones, those that are close to you. And as the heart expands, imagine them with you, inside your heart. Bringing your attention to family, to friends, As the heart expands, allow them to settle there as well. Gently bringing attention to those you miss. Either those you have not seen in a long time, those that are physically no longer with you. As the heart expands, allow them to settle within you. Gently bringing attention and awareness to those you may not know. Those you pass each day. Strangers that surround you. Those that sleep on the streets. And as the heart expands, allow them to settle within you. Holding them all closely together. Now gently bringing your attention and awareness to those you dislike. Those who frustrate you, irritate you. Those who have harmed you. And as your heart expands, allow them to settle there as well. With each breath in, the heart expands. Holding all of those that come to mind. Begin to visualize the heart getting smaller. Yet holding all of those that come to mind. May everyone in our hearts at this moment be joyful, at ease, peaceful, and free from suffering. May we all be joyful, at ease, peaceful, and free from suffering. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize every feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with in this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samutpata, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakening. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in and where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not always easy. It's not always fun. It's not an escape. It's direct perception into the present moment and becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do. This is what the Buddha referred to as karma. All of our actions, thoughts, words, and deeds. This is our life. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's not something you pay for. It's a way of life. It's sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else. That's it. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, which is where we spend so much of our time. Why did they do this? Why did they do that? I'm angry at the way they did this. I'm angry at the way they did that. We spend so much time focused on what everybody else did wrong. This practice is letting go of that and focusing on what you do. Life gets much simpler that way. So I'll pause there, and normally I would just open up to questions, but I want to take a few moments and go back just very specifically to allow time for people who want to share or reflect on anything from their loving kindness practice. Anything that was pleasant for you or unpleasant. Anything that was joyful or difficult. So any thoughts very specifically first, just from the meditation practice and how it was for you to sit with that. So we'll open up for anyone who wants to share. Yeah.
I found my list of everybody I love was the exact same list of everybody I don't like or bothers me.
Kind of funny, huh?
Bothers me, frustrates me. I don't like them. It's just,
Yes.
the same people.
Same people, right?
Same 10 or 15, yeah.
That love-hate relationship, Yeah, thanks. What else? Who wants to share? Same thing virtually for anybody who wants to share. Feel free to add it there to the chat box somewhere.
I was struck by how long my list of people who I love is and how short my list of people who have wronged me is.
That's great. I'm just going to repeat that for those virtually or those who didn't hear it, but you said you were struck by how long your list was of those that you love and how short your list was of those that have wronged you. Yeah. Beautiful.
I think I'm grateful, because I haven't done a loving kindness meditation in a long time. So I always think of the same people, along the line. And I think it was a little more meaningful today because I was thinking of my family and then those who aren't here. So I thought of my mom who's passed away, but in particular my brother whose today was his birthday. So I got to spend time with his daughter today, and that's sort of in a way full circle. So I thank you for that. But it's just
Sure.
honoring me.
Thanks for sharing.
When you, hi Jeff, when you were saying about, you were talking about people they are close to me. Nobody came in my mind about people.
Yeah.
Because I always, I don't trust people in general, and I always keep my distance. So I'm scared of intimacy, so I always stay kind of distant.
Yeah.
I thought about my cats, the one that I have now, and the one that, because I love animals, and I'm able to love them, and that I'm not, I feel safe
Yeah.
with animals. So I thought about my cats, so
Beautiful.
the one that I have now, the one that passed away. But people, I have kind of a little bit, I struggle with them.
Often people, when they come in with dogs and they'll say, our dog's welcome. And I say, the dogs are preferred. It's the people that are optional. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I like to think I'm pretty good about not disliking anyone that I meet and that I know.
Yeah.
But then you said to open up to people you dislike, and I just immediately thought of like just people on the road. People I know, sometimes I don't even see their face, just people,
Right.
just because what turn they take or how fast they go or how close they follow me.
Yeah.
It's wild. I never really, it just, I don't know, I thought about that.
And that's really, I mean, when I'm leading that, it's not, just from a technical leading standpoint, you try not to like talk too much through it, even though you're guiding people. But that's in essence that part about the strangers, the people you pass throughout your day. I mean, you probably just passed 1,000 people today, literally, in some capacity that you have no idea who they are and you'll never see them again. And you might not even have seen them, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
But your presence passed their presence, and their presence could have pissed you off in some manner. It also could have, made you joyful. So the person either slows down on the road and lets you in and you have no idea who they are, but that machine on 4 wheels was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Or they sped up and cut you off and didn't let you in, and then that machine on 4 wheels was really angry. So it's crazy how much the strangers really do impact our emotions throughout our day. And scary if you think about how much we let absolute strangers that we've never seen, don't know, ruin us.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. What else?
Throughout the day, doesn't matter how many people I feel frustrated towards or how angry I get towards, when you ask us to just think about the people that we dislike or hate or feel angry, I could not find one person in the normal state of mind when I'm just trying to, find a balance in the center.
Yeah.
So I really couldn't find one person that they're all people and they come with their own, way of living, and that's their choice. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't dislike anyone.
Yeah, that's great.
I kind of have sympathy for people, actually.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Now, what about if you're in a really bad, angry mood? Does that change?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Then, I think the key is to finding this moment.
Say that again a little louder for those who didn't hear it.
I'm saying that I think the key is to finding this moment and think, like taking a second, maybe taking a deep breath and remember this second. So I think,
That's the practice. If we always have that sense of groundedness and compassion and love in our hearts and minds at all moments, like you said, in that moment, you couldn't think of anyone really that you dislike because you're in a loving, kind, compassionate place. But when we are in the angry, greedy, whatever place, that list gets long, man.
Sure.
And so, yes, that's why we practice to have nothing but love and kindness. Not easy.
Not at all.
But that's why we call it the practice. Yeah. Thank you.
It's discipline.
Say again?
Takes discipline.
It takes discipline, yes, like last night.
I felt very open and, through several of the tiers
Yeah,
that you invited. But when you saw the people you don't know, maybe people on the street, my mind jumped into, oh, it's already too crowded in there already.
isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I mean, it was just instantaneous.
Right.
And then, but I will say in this environment with, meditating with the group, it felt easier to say, oh, well, okay, I'll give it a try.
Right. Now, and I'm just curious, I'm just asking this question to kind of maybe stir up more fun stuff that's in you and again, as I was saying to Pierre, the guidedness, so when I say the strangers, when I say the people sleeping on the streets, that's going to trigger different things. If I say strangers, it could be healthy, pleasant interactions, right? Buddha talks about pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. So the stranger could be a pleasant interaction or an unpleasant or neutral interaction. Someone sleeping on the streets, same thing, depending on what trigger that brings up, right? So for you, your immediate reaction or a reaction was it's kind of crowded in there. Now, do you think that was from a safety standpoint? Was it, hey, you're sleeping on the streets, I don't want you in my heart because I'm afraid of you?
It was safety.
Safety,
Yeah, it brought up some old images.
right?
Yeah.
Crazy how it does that. Yeah. Thanks.
I was surprised at how then, it was kind of like, okay, I'm willing to
You
give
let
it
him
a
in.
try.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's
Yeah.
one kind
That was kind of cute the way you said like it's a little crowded in there.
That's
No more room on the bus.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And the sad part is, welcome to our society. It's all too crowded. We don't have room for the 10,000 people sleeping on the streets downtown San Diego. That's the harsh reality. Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
When you had us welcome in the people that we have the most difficulty with, all like her, it was like, it's really getting crowded in here. And it's like, I don't know. And then I thought, I had this image of just shifting my perspective and welcoming them in and giving them the best seats in the house.
Right. That's great. Yeah. It's always fascinates me how, because we all do completely different things. Does anyone let someone in but then kick somebody out? Someone shared that once. I thought was really interesting. Like, all right, you had that happen.
I just had a situation happen before I came here, and so rather than kicking that person out, when I thought about someone who was upsetting me, I kind of more imagined me giving that anxiety just lovingly back to that person.
Yeah.
Changing it to love and giving it back so that I don't take it on myself.
For sure.
Nice. I feel calmer now.
Yeah, it's great. And it's the reality is that we so easily take on other people's emotions. And it's very hard to, again, we talked about this last night, but to become the observer of other people's stuff and to not take that on ourselves is difficult. But yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing.
When you were, those who aren't physically with us anymore, and I'm a big animal lover too. And last year, we lost both of our fur babies, and one, he'd been with me for 13 years, and I consider him the keeper of my heart and soul. And so it's been rather rough, extremely rough. And in coming in here, it's one of the things that I've been grappling with.
Yeah.
And while ago, when I was on virtual ones, so you brought about impermanence, and been trying to bring that into my daily reflection on that. And so when that came up, I immediately went to like sorrow and trying to catch myself in that moment and try to lean towards gratitude and accepting that impermanence. Because in not accepting that impermanence, I'm trying to control and make it what I want it to be and not letting it be what it is. And so really in that moment, just understanding that it is a physicalness that's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And, so I don't know, that's where I was at.
Yeah, no, beautiful. Appreciate you sharing. I don't know if you've probably heard me mention this, but if you've read much of Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings on death, and you'll hear it even as he says it many different ways or writes it many different ways, but in essence, no birth, no death, no coming, no going. It really stems back to a great 4th century philosopher, one of the very often considered the wisest teacher next to the Buddha. His name was Nagarjuna, and no beginning, no end. And I always, when I hear Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings on that, to me, it's just a very beautiful way to express Nagarjuna's teachings, that we all live in our minds and our hearts, but we get attached to the physical form. And so even though the animals, the people, whatever it is that we can't, physically hold them, hug them, they never die. And yeah, they're always there. Thanks. What else? Anything on that practice? Or now we'll just kind of open up to anything really. Meditation, Buddhist practice, curiosities, anything that's on your mind. For me, I always really just prefer and respond to answer to questions around meditation or Buddhist teachings, or anything else you want to share from your meditation. So we'll use the rest of our brief time this evening, just kind of open up for that. And same thing virtually, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to chime in. Yeah.
Well, I've been practicing since last year's love without attachment.
Yeah.
So it's been a really strong lesson. And every time something comes up, it doesn't matter whether it's people or things or it's just I keep trying to go there. It's like,
Yeah.
how can I love this without being attached to it? How can I love this without being attached to it? So it's helped a lot to let go. It brings a lot more peace.
Sure. Yeah, the non-attachment teachings and practices, it really is life-changing. And anytime I hear someone express it the way you did, as far as to love without attachment, my mind immediately especially phrased that way, the word attachment gets replaced with another word, love without expectations, regret, control. To love without control, meaning attempt. I don't mean you loving uncontrollably, but to love without attempting to control. So super difficult.
So can we say that that's the unconditional love? No.
I wouldn't, I would, at this moment in this context, I wouldn't call that unconditional love. You could unconditionally love somebody, but still have very toxic, unhealthy behaviors where you're trying to control them. Unconditional love, I think, is this very Western. I just think it's different. Unconditional love and non-attachment, I think, they're different. Yeah. I mean, unconditional love is great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting it down. Please love unconditionally. But I think that, we can tell ourselves we love unconditionally, but still be trying to control. That the control is really, it's almost like the unconditional love is about them, that we're going to love them unconditionally no matter who they are, how they are, what they do. But even in that process, we can still be trying to control them, where the love without the attachment is removing any sort of effort or attempts to control or expect anything from them. Yeah. What else? Thoughts, questions?
There's a big homeless population here. We also have that in Florida as well. And there's from the center that I go to in Sarasota, there's a Buddhist nun there that when she spoke, she said that before you give anything to anyone, check your intention as to why you're giving it. And if you have an attachment to whatever you're giving, then don't give, because then it's not a gift, it comes with something attached to it. So I found that very profound. And then because if you're going to have an attachment to the money that you give, the food that you give, or whatever, so she said that just to say a prayer.
Sure. Yeah, so that comes from, again, very fundamental Buddhist teachings around in the Pali Canon, where the Buddha talked about the factors for, the word is dana, generosity. Dana is not money, dana is generosity. And the Buddhist teachings on the factors for true dana is to feel pleasant before, pleasant during, and pleasant after. And if these three conditions do not arise, it's not true generosity. The Bodhisattva teachings are to give as if there is no gift, no giver, and no receiver. So the heart of the Buddhist nun's message is beautiful. The only thing that I would add to that, because this question comes up all the time here, right? So we have, for 14 years, we run a Thursday food redistribution program. We prepare food, we go out, and we feed people sleeping on the streets, right? So many times people ask, what if I'm doing this just because it makes me feel good? And this is where I would throw the little asterisks in there that, again, I'm not going to argue with. I mean, the Buddhist nun, those are beautiful teachings. But if I said to everybody in that example, don't do it then they're missing out, the individual, on cultivating the practice of still giving. So I think there's, some gray area there. You know what I mean? Where, like if somebody said, hey, I go every Thursday just because it makes me feel good. And I'm like, good. Keep going. Because eventually one day you'll be there and it won't be all about you anymore. But I think we have to kind of burn through that for a while. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's a great Friends episode on this where Phoebe, I don't know if you guys watched Friends, but
I've seen probably every episode 12,000 times. So.
Same. So it's the one where Phoebe says that she loves to give, and the friends challenge her, saying that the only reason you give is because it makes you feel good. she's like, that's not true. And then she starts analyzing it, and she recognizes that the only reason that she does everything she does is because she feels good.
Right.
And then finally she lets a bee sting her. She's like, that didn't feel good to me. And then like, well, the bee's now dead. So,
I've actually not seen that one, but
no way.
um,
Oh my gosh.
and that's, you bring up another point. Well, I'm sorry, what was your name? From Florida?
Oh, Trina.
Trina, what you were saying is that brings up the condition where what it's really getting at is the practice of non-self. And so when we're doing things, when we're giving, it's really about us very often. And I still think that that's a good starting point, because giving to cultivate generosity and kindness and compassion is a great first step to understanding non-self. And also through this process, when we give and we realize, like, I'm only doing this for me, we get to reflect on the fact that we're giving and it's only for us. So I think these opportunities to become aware of our ego, our greed, our attachments, our sense of self are really important. What else? Yeah.
How do you cultivate compassion and kindness towards yourself in tough times?
Yeah. So how do you cultivate compassion and kindness towards yourself in tough times? Did you have your hand up as well? I think I said. Do you want to let me hear your question as well?
It's related actually.
Oh, really? To that as well? Okay, great. So I'll kind of close with this thought. The practice of cultivating, bringing self-compassion during challenging times. First, let's remove this idea of challenging times, because you're going to have challenging times your whole life. Whatever challenge you're in now, you'll get through it. And you know what's going to be waiting for you? Another challenge. So it's almost like I often say to people that when people are really struggling, they show up to things like this. And then all of a sudden their life is great, right? You don't see them for a while. And then the roller coaster ride comes crashing down again. They're like, oh, I better get, my meditation on again, because everything's, crashing down on me. And then they're like, all right, I'm good, smooth sailing now. And then the ship crashes again. This is just the cycle of life. It's a constant up and down, constant battle. So that's why I always remove the when things are challenging first and just stick to how do we cultivate self-compassion. So to kind of close on this thought, in the Buddhist teachings, the second noble truth, the cause of our suffering. The first one is that life is filled with dukkha, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction, that we struggle a lot through our lives. First noble truth. Second noble truth is the cause. The cause of our suffering is known as the three poisons: greed, anger, and ignorance. The third noble truth is the ending of suffering, liberation, nirvana, freedom from suffering. That's great. And the fourth noble truth is the Eightfold Path. And that's 8 simple steps: correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. All on Google, all for free. Just go nuts. It's all right there. But your question really addresses the second noble truth, which is compassion. We overcome greed, anger, and ignorance with generosity, compassion, and wisdom. So recognize your anger first. Anger towards self is an awareness that we really want to watch. And if we want to have, again, you overcome anger with compassion. So if we're angry at somebody else, we work on having compassion for somebody else. Who in here has an easier time having love and compassion for others than they do themselves, right? It's usually like 90% of people are like, yeah, I'll forgive you, I love you, I'm over it. but for 40 years you've been torturing yourself. You know, an absolute stranger pisses you off, and you're like, all right, I'll forgive you. You yourself, you can't even forgive yourself for something you did when you were like 12. You know, understand the anger you have towards yourself. Try forgiving yourself. Try understanding that the actions you did that you're angry about, you lacked wisdom, you lacked understanding, you lacked skillful means in that moment, and try to forgive yourself. I mean, for me, I've done so many things wrong, and you know my life, for the most part, I've done so many things bad in my life. I would have to spend like 17 lifetimes trying to forgive myself for all that stuff. Or just say, I was an idiot. And just lump it all together in one big bag and say, I was an idiot. And I did things without wisdom, without compassion, without kindness. Can't change it. And I can spend the rest of my life hating myself for it, which is what I did for a while. Or I can say, you know what? I'm going to work on not doing this anymore.
What was the root cause of your
The root cause of my anger? Birth. I'm serious. I mean, yeah. My anger started so young. Without trauma, without anything. I was just angry. I mean, 4 years old, I was, you know, punching a kid for taking my bazooka bubblegum joke that my grandma gave me, you know. Started young, man. I don't know what to tell you. But so begin to recognize the anger you have towards yourself. Learn forgiveness. Practice towards yourself every day. You know, it's the old Saturday Night Live skit, start small, you're good enough, you're smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like you. So, what are you going to say, Kevin?
I got a moment of confusion now if I'm looking at words.
Yeah.
So for somebody who doesn't have like this kind of, oh, I effed up and I did that and I did that, you don't have those feelings. You don't necessarily feel this overwhelming compassion for yourself on daily things that you do, mental things. Then does that make you, you're a person living in denial of what you've done?
Are you talking about
Because I don't feel like compassionate, but I also don't feel any kind of like, oh, I was so bad.
Well, are you being
personally?
Are you being like harsh on yourself, or?
For daily things that I notice, but
Yeah.
I don't feel like this overwhelming compassion, like to slow down.
Right.
But I also don't have things that I'm living with through my whole legacy of life either.
Yeah. So I'll close with this thought and we'll wrap up. I think that, you know, every time I talk about that, I'm always talking about, you know, things that have caused harm and then bringing compassion into your life, almost as if it's like they balance each other out in a way. And it's really not meant to be that way. I think that, you know, I mean, even as a parent, you know, as a partner, like there are so many kind, compassionate things that you do all day long, every day. You don't need like medals for them, although they're deserved, I'm sure. But I think it's good to stop and recognize once in a while. That's why my first response was like, are you too hard on yourself? I think it's a healthy once in a while to stop and recognize like, wow, I'm a pretty kind, compassionate person, you know? You don't need to wear it like, you know, look at me. But do you ever stop and realize how compassionate you are to your loved ones? Like,
Yeah, I definitely don't. I guess I think maybe it's easier for me to find compassion in things I've done with other people versus the things I do to myself inflicted. Does that make sense?
yeah, but I guess my question is then, so for me, when people talk about self-compassion, right, it's not like a bubble bath and like, you know, a day spa. Like self-compassion is putting this practice into life. That's the most compassionate thing you can do for yourself. I don't know if that helps at all, but yeah, and then we'll close. Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention something that I've been working with recently for my practice
Yeah.
is a few people, you also mentioned how it's easy to forgive someone else or something like that. And so I think about how would I want a partner to talk to me, or how would I talk to a child? And then turn that around. Am I talking to myself that way? Am I giving that to myself? And that's how I've started to build a bit of self-compassion, thinking, oh, that's something I would want someone to say to me, or that's something I would want a child to hear.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's where we're most loving in most relationships.
For sure. It's actually really funny you said that, and I'll close with this thought because I literally, about an hour ago, somebody had posted this somewhere and I shared it, and it said, you will never speak to anyone more than you speak to yourself in your head, so be kind to yourself. You know, we talk to ourselves all day long in our head, our thoughts, so that kindness is important to ourselves. But how many good things do you say about yourself all day long? 0. Well, glad you're keeping score, right? So you have a couple hours tonight to say at least one kind thing to yourself, you know? Well, you know, when you're done reading, say, I'm happy that I read.
But Jeff, a lot of this feels like resilience, this compassion, it feels like building resilience.
It's not a battle. It's not a war. You're not building compassion to like fight people off or fight yourself off.
No, but I mean like resilience in that you can ride those waves of when things come up in life easier.
Yeah, and that's what I meant. My initial response was, let's not take it like when we have challenges. Yes, if we cultivate compassion on a daily basis, that when these challenges come up that are maybe more extreme than others, it's a lot easier to just settle into them than if we're angry and, you know, carrying emotions that are unpleasant.
It's like resilience versus resistance.
Yes. Yeah. So, all right, so we'll close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. All right, just a few quick announcements before you all head out. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. Thanks for being here. We opened up this temple 17 years ago, initially downtown. We moved here about 6 years ago to be a bridge and introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just unenlightened practitioners sharing our approach to Buddhism with other unenlightened folks. No offense to any of you enlightened ones in the room. Every night we have different people leading from different traditions. We have quite a large recovery sangha, so anyone battling addiction, drugs, alcohol, or whatever you might be addicted to, that meets pretty much every day at some point in time. So always something going on. Thursday, 5 o'clock, we feed people sleep on the street, so it's a great, also kind of socially engaged way to interact with people. Just show up any Thursday, 5 o'clock. We'll be downstairs making sandwiches for 45 minutes to an hour, and then we head downtown and pass them out. So it's a great way to just get involved and spend some time with some others. So as I alluded to at the beginning again, Bettina will start next Wednesday. She's wonderful. I've known her from the old Buddhist temple for about 20 years. I'm really excited for her to finally lead a weekly class here. So that'll be next Wednesday. And then, other than that, thanks for being here. A couple of you don't mind, just we'll close the windows on the side and just kind of leave everything straightened up before you head out. Be well. Thanks all.